San Francisco hides countless secrets, but none more restless than the Queen Anne Hotel. By day, it looks like a charming Victorian building, but by night, the walls remember everything. Guests say they wake to find their luggage packed by unseen hands. Some have heard a woman sobbing in room 410, even though the hotel's records show it's been vacant for years. The night clerk always smiles a bit too much when he says checkout is at 11, if you're still here by then. Is it just the groaning of an old building, or is something or someone still checking in? Turn the volume up, but stay silent, because at the Queen Anne, the dead keep their own guest book. Smash that like button, or the woman from room 410 might pay you a visit tonight. Subscribe and tap the bell if you're brave enough to find out what happens at 3 a.m. in this haunted hotel. Comment, I accept the key if you dare spend just one night in that cursed room. San Francisco's Queen Anne Hotel was supposed to be a charming getaway, a historic Victorian gem with lace curtains, antique furniture, and whispers of the past in every creaking floorboard. But from the moment I checked in, something felt wrong. The front desk clerk didn't smile. His eyes flickered to the grand staircase behind me as he handed me the key. Room 410, third floor. His voice was flat, rehearsed. Checkout is at 11 sharp. The elevator groaned like a dying beast, but I took it anyway. When the doors slid open, the hallway stretched too long, the floral wallpaper peeling at the edges like skin. My room was beautiful, a 4-poster bed, a vanity with an old mirror, a writing desk, but the air was thick, stale, like the room had been sealed for years. That first night I woke to the sound of scratching, ticked like fingernails on wood. I sat up, heart pounding. The noise came from the closet. I told myself, it was rats. Old buildings have rats. Then, the whispering started, not from the hallway, not from the walls, from inside the room. A woman's voice, soft but urgent, right beside the bed. You shouldn't be here. I turned on the lamp. Nothing, just the shadows swaying, the mirror reflecting my own wide, terrified eyes. The next morning I asked the clerk about the hotel's history. He hesitated, then said, it used to be a girls' school, then a private residence. His lips twitched. Some guests say they see things, hear things. He leaned in. But you're in her room. He didn't answer, just slid a newspaper clipping across the desk. A headline from 1895. Headmistress found dead in room 410. I woke up in the lobby. The clerk stared down at me. Checkout is at 11, he said. You have 5 minutes. I never look back. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear her voice in the dark. You shouldn't have left. I'll find you, I told myself. It was over. A bad dream, a trick of the mind. But 3 nights after I fled the Queen Anne, I woke to the scent of rosewater and old wood. My bedroom was freezing. The digital clock flashed 4:10 a.m., and the whispering started again. You left without saying goodbye. I bolted upright, sweat slick on my skin. My closet door, the same heavy carved wood as the one in room 410, stood slightly ajar. The darkness inside pulsed, breathing. I called the hotel the next morning. The line crackled, distant, like I was dialing through time itself. A woman answered, not the clerk. Her voice was too smooth, too polite. Queen Anne Hotel, how may I assist you? I stayed in room 410. Something's wrong, I think. A dry chuckle. Oh, she remembers you. The call dropped. That night I dreamed of the hotel's grand parlor. A tea set laid out, steam curling from the spout. The Victorian woman sat across from me, her face half-shadowed. You were my guest, she murmured, and guests stay. I woke with a gasp and something moved in the corner of my room. A shape in the mirror, a rustle of petticoats. The next morning, a package arrived at my doorstep. No return address. Inside a yellowed postcard of the Queen Anne Hotel, the words, "We've reserved your room," scrawled in elegant, century-old script, and beneath it, a single long black hair. I burned the postcard. The flames turned blue. Now every night at 4:10 the air grows heavy. The whispers coil around me, and I see her, just for a second in the mirror, in the window, in the dark. because checkout was at 11, and I was late. I tried to run, change cities, change my name, but hotels, all hotels, felt wrong after her. The scent of rosewater followed me, the flicker of movement in every antique mirror. Then last week I got an email. Subject, your reservation confirmation. Dear guest, we are delighted to inform you that your stay at the Queen Anne Hotel has been extended. Room 410 awaits your return. Check-in is now permanent. Kind regards, management. I deleted it, but the next morning my skin was cold, unnaturally so. My reflection lagged, just half a second behind, and when I touched my wrist I felt it, a faint ghostly pressure, like fingers circling my pulse. I drove back to San Francisco. The hotel looked the same, grand, eerie, bathed in fog, but the door was locked, the windows dark. A sign hung crookedly on the entrance. I pounded on the glass. Let me in. I need to end this. The clerk appeared in the foyer. His face was gaunt, his smile too wide. Ah, he said, voice muffled through the door. You're finally checking back in. Behind him, shadows moved in the hallway.
And at the very top, her watching, waiting, the lock clicked open, the clerk stepped aside, and the whispering became a chorus. Welcome home. The lobby smelled of damp wood and forgotten years. The clerk's grin never faltered as he slid an iron key across the desk, the same one I had returned in panic weeks before. Room 410, he said. No need to check out this time. The elevator groaned as it ascended, but the numbers above the door didn't light up. 3, 4, then nothing. The doors opened onto a hallway longer than before, lined with doors that hadn't been there last time. Each one slightly ajar, each one breathing out a cold, sickly draft. My room was different now. The wallpaper had darkened, the patterns twisting into faces. The vanity mirror was shattered, but the shards still reflected movement, her movement, just out of sight. The bed was made, the sheets pulled taut, as if someone had been waiting. I turned to leave, but the door was gone, only wallpaper stretched where it had been. Then the whispering began, not just hers this time, but dozens of voices, overlapping, pleading, screaming. You shouldn't have come back. They never let you leave. She keeps us here. The closet door rattled, the scratching louder now, frantic. Something thumped against the wood. I backed toward the window, but when I pulled back the lace curtain, there was no street below, only fog. Endless, hungry fog. The bed creaked. I turned. The sheets were rumpled now. The shape of a body still indented the mattress. And sitting at the edge, her back to me, was the woman in Victorian dress, her head tilted slowly. You're late, she whispered. The lights went out, and in the dark, cold fingers closed around my wrist. Welcome to the Queen Anne Hotel. Checkout is no longer an option. The Queen Anne Hotel, the grand ball, the darkness swallowed me whole. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in room 410. I stood at the edge of a grand ballroom, its vaulted ceilings draped in cobwebs, its chandeliers glinting with spectral light. The air hummed with the sound of a waltz played on a music box, slowed, warped, wrong. All around me, figures in period dress swayed in perfect, unnatural unison. Their faces were blurred, as if seen through frosted glass, and at the center of the room, she waited. The Victorian woman stood atop a raised dais, her gown the color of dried blood, her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her hollow eyes. "You're just in time," she murmured, her voice echoing from every corner of the room. "The dance is about to begin." I tried to run, but my body wouldn't obey. My legs moved on their own, carrying me forward toward her. The other guests turned in unison, their featureless faces. "You're one of us now," he whispered. The music swelled, the walls pulsed like a living thing, and then a hand clamped down on my shoulder. The clerk stood beside me, his grin wider than ever. "The hotel has accepted you," he said. "There's just one last thing to sign." He held out a ledger. The pages were filled with names, dozens, hundreds, all written in the same shaky script.
The last line was blank, waiting for mine. The Victorian woman extended a skeletal hand. "Shall we dance?" The music box began to play again, and this time I couldn't stop myself from joining in. My hand trembled. The other guests had stopped dancing now. They stood motionless, their blurred faces tilted in expectation. The music box had wound down to a slow, labored tick, like a dying heart. I pressed the pen to paper. A scream tore through the ballroom, but it wasn't mine. The chandeliers shattered. The walls bled dark, viscous liquid. The clerk's grin finally faltered as his skin split like old parchment, revealing something hollow and squirming beneath. The Victorian woman shrieked, her dress melting into smoke. "You don't belong to me yet." I stumbled back and the floor gave way. I fell through darkness, through time, through the gasps of 100 lost souls. Then impact, cold tile against my cheek, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I was in the hotel lobby, but it was different. Modern, bright, alive. A young receptionist blinked down at me. "Sir, oh my God, are you okay?" I gasped, clutching my chest. My reflection in the polished front desk was my own again. No lag, no shadows. "Room 410, I rasped. "Is it occupied?" She frowned, typing. "No, but it's been out of service for years, ever since that woman died in there." A pause. "Wait, how did you know the room number?" I didn't answer, because behind her in the gilded lobby mirror, I saw them just for a second. The clerk, the dancers, her, watching, waiting. "Until next time," the mirror whispered as I fled. Inside, page after page of names, all former guests of the Queen Anne. Some entries were faded with time. Others still glistened, wet as if signed in blood that refused to dry. And then I saw it, my name, half written. The ink pulsed like a living thing, the letters squirming, reaching toward completion. That night the dreams began. Not dreams, invitations. Every time I closed my eyes, I stood at the threshold of room 410. The door stood slightly ajar, golden light spilling out. Inside, laughter, clinking glasses, the murmur of a party in full swing. "You're the guest of honor," the Victorian woman's voice cooed from within. "We've been waiting." I'd wake, gasping, my fingers stained with ink, no matter how many times I scrubbed them raw. Last Tuesday, I found the first photograph tucked in my coat pocket, a black and white image of the hotel's grand ballroom. The blurred figures stood frozen mid-waltz, and there at the edge of the frame, a clear, unmistakable silhouette. Me. The clerk left me a voicemail yesterday. Just static at first. Then, "Checkout time is approaching, sir. Will you be settling your account or joining our permanent residence?" The ledger lies open on my desk as I write this. My pen hovers over the page, the ink yearns, and somewhere in the dark, a music box begins to play. I filled in the rest of my name. The ink didn't just settle, it sank into the paper, like a throat swallowing. The moment the final stroke was complete, the ledger slammed shut on its own, with a sound like a coffin sealing. Rosewater filled the air. The walls of my apartment peeled back like old wallpaper, revealing the Queen Anne's ballroom beneath. The phantom guests stood in a silent circle around me, their blurred faces now sharpening into people I recognized. The clerk, the woman from the front desk, my neighbor who went missing last winter. At the head of the room, the Victorian woman extended her hand, not in menace, but in ceremony. "The hotel is complete now," she said. I understood. Some doors only open one way. Some guests were always meant to stay. The music box played its final, perfect note. And when the police kicked down my door, 3 days later, they found only 3 things: an empty apartment, thick with the scent of roses, a cold spot in the center of the room that made their breath frost. On the desk, a vintage postcard of the Queen Anne Hotel, now with one additional window, glowing gold in the darkness. So you've heard the tale. It's over now. Or perhaps this is only the beginning, because what you heard wasn't just words. It was a door, and you're the one who opened it. You saw her. You felt her. Now she knows who you are, where you live, when you're awake, And when you sleep, remember, Queen Anne's debt isn't paid just by listening to a story. Some debts are settled with a subscribe, some by sharing, and others are paid in screams. If you want her to leave you alone, then share this tale. Let it spread, like a foul smell that creeps into every room, because the more it's heard, the farther she'll stay. But if you stay silent, then the next night, as you lie in bed, with the lights off, you might feel a breath near your neck, a shadow, and a reflection that isn't yours. The choice is yours. Subscribe, share the video, or wait until she returns. Because one thing is certain, Queen Anne never forgives. And the most terrifying truth, she always comes at the end.